yeah, like it's yeah, I'm just kind of waiting. Like I just give me an excuse. Like, go put it on sale and I'll go get it.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
put it on sale and I'll be like, I will be there. I just don't want to spend $300 on both of them. It's a little bit less than that. I think it's 270, but like,
Yeah.
the longer it sits on there, the closer and closer my cursor gets to hitting buy now. So, um, yeah, yeah.
Well, Grinch, the real question is, did I change your mind?
Don't make me say it. Don't make me say it. Why don't you tell the listeners what our the best fantasy set of 2025 is?
Well, I will say I have nominated the Shire later. If that makes you feel better, if you feel obligated to get it on the winners list, there's another opportunity.
Hello, bricks, chicks, and minifigures. You are listening to AFOLs Welcome, where we talk about all things Lego from the perspective of two adult collectors. We're your co-host. I'm Grinch.
And I'm West.
And today it is the 2025 awards show. Drum roll, please. But before we do that, West, how was your week?
Oh, Grinch, it was good. I was wrapping up some schoolwork, some finals. I thought I was done with that, but I'm not. Education, it turns out, is a lifelong process. Gross. And so I haven't had a lot of time for building, but I did want to speak to the extension that we put on the Lego Adventures building contests that we are holding with Wilderland Bricks. We've extended it to January 15th, acknowledging that the holidays, everyone's kind of busy, and we just wanted to kind of continue to push some more information about that. So I would anticipate for all of our listeners and viewers that they will continue to get barraged on Instagram with a notification that the build competition is occurring. We are, at least I know I'm going to be sort of for fun building something, and you can expect to see that probably before the Christmas holiday here in the United States. Posted on Instagram. It will not be part of the competition, but just to sort of spark some creativity if you're not working on something already. But that's kind of what I've been thinking about and working on this week, Grinch. How about you?
My background's different.
Yes.
So I'm in a new house. So that's exciting. So I haven't really done anything with Lego because,
Lego for real.
real life. Yeah. So I've got my display cases over here, as you can see. But I've got plenty to do around the house over the next couple of weeks before Lego gets put into them. I did manage to go to the Lego store, however.
Ooh, it's nice having one close by.
It's, like 10 minutes too. But no, I mean, so I'll be there on January 1st. But no, it's a new season, right? So there's new pick-a-brick pieces.
Yep.
And I wanted to just, because they do the seasonal Christmas, Halloween stuff, right? So I'm like, well, it's a whole new season. I know there's going to be some new pieces. So I went and they had some dark gray 4x6 plates, which is like not the most exciting piece in the world, but is also the most exciting piece in the world because of my Moria mock that I'm working on. So I got, I was with my wife. I was packing a box and I was like, these are like 26 cents each. And I can pack these boxes full of these bad boys. So I'll get another box. So I did.
There you
and
go.
That was exciting. And so I'm always thinking about Lego. I just haven't really built much. I did start, and I like, you're an adult when you're like, I started a Lego set. And it's like a 600 piece Lego set. I haven't finished it yet, which feels weird. But the home cruiser, home runner, whatever from Star Wars. What am I thinking of? The Mon Calamari ship. Home One, thank you. Home Runner is the something else from YouTube. The Home One I started. and I'm about halfway done with that. So I do need to finish that up. It's been a
Nice.
pretty good build so far. What's interesting and what I didn't actually know is that on the inside there's a reference to Rebels.
Oh, gross. Okay.
Right, which isn't that kind of funny? Like, so anyways, it's always so hard to classify sets, right? Because there's also a reference to Admiral Akbar, episode 6, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
is this now a Rebel set or is this now a episode 6 set?
I
Or
mean,
is it
and
just
you'd
part of the
think that,
Starship series?
yeah, yeah. Well, there you go. You'd think it would be more of episode 6 reference than that. It's like the ship in episode 6. So
That's right. I mean, that's what I thought too. But
who knows?
you build the Rebels reference first, so that's all I'll say.
Ugh. Okay.
Well, you know what else I'll say, West, is some exciting Lego news. So how about we do that?
Let's do it.
Exciting Lego news.
All right, Grinch. So first up this week, we got announcements for just a few sets because we've kind of crested the January 1 wave. Now we're on the back side of it. We're dealing with the hangover from the January 1 announcement. And so there's a few sets kind of trickling in from announcements, but now we're kind of really hanging on for March and May at this point. So it'll be interesting to see what is coming down the pike. But first up, the Lego Ideas Lovebirds set was officially announced. The Lego Ninjago Old Town set was also announced. We have information on Lego Batman Legacy of the Dark Knight pre-orders, which are now open for people to pre-order the game. And then Fortnite and Lego Ninjago are actually doing a collaboration with Fortnite. And there's some really interesting kind of changes with this.
Yeah, and I'm actually of the news this week that has me the most excited because from like a nerd perspective, I don't play Fortnite.
I was going to say, as
I
a
Lego.
non-Fortnite player,
I'm just like, again, I wish you could get like the data on how some of these things perform because like I'm really curious how this performs for Fortnite.
yeah,
Because obviously we've seen conversation about it because we're a part of the Lego community. I'm not a part of the Fortnite community necessarily, so I don't know how they're reacting to it. Are there a lot of Fortnite people that are like, "Oh, this is sweet"? So I'm just curious, like how this sells for them or
for
how
the
this does
listener
for
and
Fortnite.
viewer who are unaware, these are new skins, right? Or people, I
There,
guess. I don't.
there's a bunch. I mean, so there's actually even on like the Pick a Brick. They've been doing the instructions on Pick a Brick online for like a set, like just order these pieces
Well,
and you can make. They did that for these nunchucks
right.
for
So I was,
Fortnite. So like there's multiple levels to this.
yeah. From the one that stood out to me was the collaboration. So on
Mhm.
Fortnite, you can play as the Ninjago characters, but they're not
Right.
in Lego minifigure form. They're in like Fortnite people form.
Yeah,
And
they're in the
so
Fortnite aesthetic, if you would.
bear with me because I'm not super familiar with the named characters in Ninjago, but like I know Kai is one of them. And so like
Mhm.
you're playing as
Very good. Very good.
Kai.
Yay.
Is he the red one?
Yes.
There we go. But like the character in Fortnite is just like this red ninja character. And so it just I don't know. If you didn't know that it was Lego related, I'm not sure you would put two and two together. It would just be like Fortnite Ninja, not like Ninjago. So
Yeah.
it's kind of an interesting design and an interesting choice. And to the point you made, I'm curious how much the Lego community and Fortnite community actually overlap rather. And I'm sure at a certain age group, but I'm sure that overlap is pretty strong. But I think if you were to go earlier or older from that age group, younger or older, that overlap would start to shrink pretty dramatically. And so, like you said, it's an interesting investment just on the kind of like, I mean, who knows how much time it actually took, but
Mhm.
interesting choice by Lego and Fortnite.
What did you think of the new Ninjago set, the Old Town?
I know I spoke really favorably about I'm gonna call it the blacksmith, but like the weaponsmith shop that got revealed a few weeks ago. The Old Town set, back before it was officially announced, there was some rumors it was gonna be akin to like the city sets where it's on kind of a modular base plate, and then people were sort of saying, well, not quite. And so there was kind of this like back and forth. I think it looks fine. I'm not a huge fan of Ninjago, so I don't really like these type of sets don't just like scream out to me, or like this one is heavily lore based, and so it's hard to sort of separate. Like with the blacksmith, you could kind of remove the characters and it could just be like an old Japanese house, but like in this case, it is really more like a lore set. I will say it's cool to see a big set that kind of feels like an old Lego playset, if that makes sense.
That's exactly how I feel about the set. It feels nostalgic for me. And like you said, we're not huge Ninjago fans. I respect it, right? I've
Yeah.
got a few sets. I've got all the city. My wallet is happy this is not another city expansion. But it does feel like a redone old
Proper
type
old
of
Lego set.
play. Yeah, an
Yeah.
old play set. And I love that. And even the box, you got the big central building. You got a couple of really tiny small builds, but it's just fun looking at all the different stories that are on here, the different adventures that they're suggesting. And it reminds me of looking at some of those old like Knights Kingdom sets, or the Fort Legorado box where you've got something going on the bottom left, the center, the back right, and then you got that main structure. So there is something special about this one, I guess. I'm not going to get it, right? I will get the 15th anniversary figures. So,
There you go.
sue me. But I'm not going to get the entire set, but it looks pretty good. And priced apart truthers will be happy with it.
Truthers. Oh, man. Well, I wanted to lastly kind of speak about the Lovebird. Well, I guess not last, but I did want to quickly speak about this Lovebirds idea set. I saw it announced earlier in the week, and it didn't really like call out to me in any specific way. But as I've been kind of thinking on it and looking at pictures even earlier today, I actually think I've kind of turned a corner on it and really like this set. It's, I think, like $60. So again, a wonderful price per part ratio that we sort of attribute to the Lego ideas of old. But it's also just a wonderful build, and I think people would actually be excused if they thought it was Lego botanicals, but it's not. It's an idea set. But the tree that the lovebirds sit on is stunning, and I actually think probably I have the Japanese maple bonsai, and I have the original bonsai, and I think this is, this tree itself is probably on par with the maple, but better than the original bonsai, and could be, if you wanted to just basically add another bonsai tree to your collection, you just take the birds off of it, and there you go. And so it's a wonderful tree build. I know I've talked about it on the channel. I love to see Lego used to mimic sort of organic forms like that. And the one thing I wasn't super fond of with the original bonsai is they use like a flexible tube piece to go and create kind of like a tree trunk sort of detail on it that just tends to fall off or bend, or it's not the sturdiest. And this one looks like it's corrected a lot of that. And so I think it's a pretty build. So I actually probably will get this one.
Well, you'll be
Especially for
happy
$60.
because it's $50.
And there you go. It's even cheaper. Exactly.
And this was the build from the heart. This was like the Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
Like we've known about this since I think February, right? And Lego's been doing this like build together thing. And well, it's probably very intentional. It's also a very nice touch that this is for 1 to 2 builders, right? Because it's the Lovebird set. I did want to go back to the Old Town really quickly
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
No. I always had the photos up while we talk about it, right, to help jog my memory. And I noticed something right as we transitioned off, and this is a big deal. This is a really big deal, West.
Okay, shoot.
I don't know why. Maybe half asleep Chris made this a thing through his YouTube videos, but there's a large fandom of Lego frogs in the Lego community. People love them, right? I mean,
No.
and I think it was cemented in the Lego iceberg when they did the bonsai tree and they had the pink frogs in it, as the flower pieces.
Mhm.
The old town comes with black frogs, which
Oh,
is
yeah.
a
I'm looking at the pictures
new
now.
color of frog.
Yeah.
And you at least get 4 of them. So
Mhm.
that's neat.
Yeah,
Actually, it
I'm
looks
looking
like you
at
get
the
8 of them.
I'm looking at the well, yeah, there's quite a few.
Actually, it looks like you get 16
There's yeah, I was gonna
They
say
will
the
be
number
out
keeps
of an
climbing.
abundance.
I mean, I guess look, I'm looking at the pictures of this set again, and there's a lot to really like with this. I know we talked about it, and now we're kind of going back to it, but there's one tree that's like built into the wall that's kind of right at the entrance. The entrance
Mhm.
itself is a Torii gate, which is really cool. I've talked before about how we don't usually get these in Lego, and so any kind of version that we get is really kind of interesting, and so that's neat. The wall structure is done really nicely. That kind of reminds me of like the Japanese garden that we got a few years ago.
Mhm.
But I think the build for this one's just a little bit better. That might be a technique I end up kind of borrowing. There's another cherry blossom tree on kind of the far end of it. Looks like there's a little waterfall. That's kind of a nice little feature. Yeah, this is a fun one. I don't know if I'm going to buy it. I don't really care much for the Ninjago lore itself, so there's not a ton there. But I really respect what the Lego team is doing here with kind of incorporating some of this imagery into the build. So, and
Yeah,
the
and I
rock
like what
work
they
looks great.
did with the rock work. Yep, I like what they did with the rock work on the wall there. I've been working on my Moria mock, and I was struggling to do some pillars, and I'm kind of looking at this, and I'm like, huh, maybe I should. Maybe I should. All right, Wes, let's get back on track here. Sorry about that. I saw the frogs.
No,
I got excited, and I know there's like 20% of the people that listen to the show that are going to be excited about a new color of frog.
well, let me. I want to call one more thing out, Grinch. Now that we're on the
Oh,
subject,
please do.
it looks like okay. Never mind. I was gonna say it looked like there's a new piece, but there's not a new piece. So never mind. Or just I'm sure there's a new piece, but like not one that stood out. So disregard.
Dis has been regarded.
Got it.
All right. Were there any of the 2026 sets that you wanted to chat through that we didn't get a chance to chat through, or maybe you had sat with for an additional week and said, you know what, I didn't notice that. Let's talk about this.
Yeah. So the one I actually wanted to talk about that we didn't really chat on the other day was the Lego train, the police chase train.
Uh-huh.
Not in the way that maybe I definitely am not going to get the set. But this is the second train we've gotten within the last calendar year that is not a passenger train or a cargo train. And that is a big change for Lego and sort of the larger train genre. We got the
Uh-huh.
Arctic train this summer, and now we have this one. The locomotive for this train looks very much like a North American cargo train. It's not a perfect. It's a tough angle to get the way that those trains' noses kind of slope diagonally, but I do think Lego did a decent job on kind of that 6 wide model there. So that's really cool to see. And yeah, it just it's different. It's exciting to see stuff like that being explored. So, like I said, not one that I'm like, oh my gosh, like look at that train, but still, we've talked in the past about Lego doing more with the train genre, and we're getting it. So that's cool to see.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting trains,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
that's a win. We still need, I think, a revamp of their track system, but that's neither here nor there.
yeah, yeah. Agreed. It's not perfect, is it?
It's not, but it's something. At least it exists,
It is what
right?
it is.
Better
But
it
Grinch,
exists than it doesn't.
anything more? I have one more thing, but I'll throw it to you real quick. Anything more that you wanted to add?
I didn't really have anything on mind. Of course, I'm gonna think of something in like 2 seconds, but no, you go right ahead, sir.
All right. Well, I saw pictures of the new modular building incorporated into people's downtowns, and not kind of like the Lego picture of it side by
Oh
side,
snap! Here it
but
comes,
just sort of
folks.
like in the
Here it
wild.
comes, and
I've got to say, I still don't think it's like maybe the strongest modular, but it looks a lot better in my mind than it did sort of on its own. I think all of our critiques still stand. I even wanted to double down. I'm really not a fan of the brick built instruments in it. There's a, a brick built trombone, and I think it's either a tuba or some other brass instrument. And the brick built instruments really stink because Lego has committed now to making molded instruments, things like saxophones. There was a stand up bass that they made a few, just in the Jazz Club was the first iteration of that. They've made like violins and stuff and guitars. I just don't understand why, like, if you were going to feature an instrument store, which again we've already had in Assembly Squared, why not give a chance to introduce like another instrument in Lego, a molded one, like a trumpet or something, or something that's kind of unique. And these just are, they feel clunky for 2025 and 2026.
Sure.
So
Yeah, I mean, hey, that's absolutely fair. I do think it's a good reminder on both ends, the negative and the positive, to judge a set based off of what it looks like in real life versus what it looks like in pictures.
yeah,
Because
and we
there's
called that
some
out. We
stuff you
said,
can
hey,
do with marketing, right? In photos where you make it look better.
we said we're excited to see it in the Lego store because that might change our minds. So my mind's already getting changed. I mean, I'm going to buy it anyways, but like, I think it's changing a little bit more towards like more favorable. So,
We didn't really talk about the World Cup sets, did we?
well, we just got the FIFA trophy, right?
Right.
That was the one that was officially announced.
That's right. What did you have any thoughts on that?
Not really. I mean, a lot of cool gold pieces.
Yeah, I mean, it's $200, right? And I think we know there's more coming. We just haven't had it officially revealed yet. So
right.
I do. It's absolutely something I would get if there was a like $10 version.
Yeah,
I would for sure get that. But $200 is kind of a lot. So we'll see what else comes in that regard. But do you know what else is coming, sir?
the main topic.
The main topic. Why don't we head over to today's topic?
Let's do it.
Today's topic.
All right. So last week we talked about the data. We tried to keep it very unemotional and logical, using numbers and statistics and things that can't lie. Today, we're going to put all of that aside and share our feelings. West, are you excited for the 2025 Lego Award show?
I am.
Awesome. So, just like we did last year, we have our 11, there's really 10 awards The 11th is the best set of the year. And in order to be eligible for the best set of the year, you have to win one of these 10 awards. So we kept them the same. We have the best set based on an original IP, best set based on a licensed, the best fantasy set, sci-fi set, real life vehicle, historical set, the set with the best minifigures, the best re-released, reimagined, or remastered set, best set based on a video game, and the best set based on everyday life. And finally, we have the best set of the year. Unlike last year, where we had 4 selections and then we chose the one, right? Or we predetermined the one.
Yep.
This year, we're mixing things up a little bit. So, Wes, why don't you explain how we're doing things a little bit differently this year?
Right as I was taking a sip of water. Grinch, this year we wanted to change it up. We decided we're both going to bring a set to the table to nominate, and then kind of have like a very quick little discussion about which one we think, the pros and cons of each, and then sort of, I would say argue, but then decide based on what we say, share which we think is going to be the best. So kind of like we've done in some of our past Lego ideas pitch competitions and stuff like that, we're kind of doing the same thing here. But we did make an important caveat, which is in the past we've tried to deconflict our selections. So if we both picked the same one, for example, like maybe one of us, if we weren't super hot on that selection, would change to another set for some reason. Tonight and today, if we've both selected the same set, we're just going to press and just agree that, like, yeah, that's the clearly
It's unanimous.
Yeah, exactly. No discussion needed. Like, this is the one. No,
Mic
we'll still
drop.
talk about like why we like it, but it's not so much a kind of like, hey, I'd like you to consider this instead of your pick, right? Like, we're all just like, yeah, on the same page. We think this one's really good. So,
all right. So that being said, I think that little caveat is about to come to fruition early on in
Right
this
up.
process.
Yeah.
West, why don't you share your selection, or how about I just cut to the chase? Why don't you share our selection for the best original set of 2025?
Yeah. And ironically, this is the only time it occurs. So, yes. Yes. So our best set based on original IP is the Tudor Corner. Grinch, why don't you share your thoughts on that?
I punted it to you so I could get the photo pulled up because my stupid browser had refreshed. So we're here.
There you go.
Okay, we're ready to talk about it. This has got to be one of the best modulars of all time, right? I mean, if not the best, right? I'm not ready to say that yet because it's only been a year, right?
Have you built yours yet?
Oh, dude, yeah, hell yeah. I mean, like normally, like the museum, I waited like a few months. The jazz club, I waited a few months. I got other stuff to do, right? Like this was like a day one build for me. This was chef's kiss, excellent set. And I mean, it's just it's almost everything about it, right? It's the how the building is laid out, the architectural aesthetic, right? The kind of Bavarian, if you would, style of building from a
Tudor,
technique
one might say.
Wow. Yeah. Sorry. Duh. The roof technique, right? I mean, these aren't easy things to do. And I think where the latest modular suffers, this modular feels chaotic in a good way because there is a lot going on, but it's all cohesive. It's all natural, right? There's a haberdashery on it as well. Like the colors accent it so well. The interior detail is phenomenal too. It might be, I think it is. I feel more confident saying it is the best interior we've ever seen from a modular, right? So I really also like how the angle of the building, right? It's not just squared. If this set came out 10 years ago, it would have been a corner squared building, but there's that really nice just kind of crop here with the actual cafe itself, where you've got some tables on the inside. Like, that's all really good and done well. And yeah, there's a lot to like here, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think you said it really well, and I don't have a ton to add. And so, at the risk of like repeating everything you've said, it's just so clean and so sharp. And you reminded me of the roof technique, that dark red roof on the actual kind of Tudor structure. The gaps there on all of those angles are just so tight. It looks it starts to actually kind of not look Lego anymore, in ways that old modular buildings and old roofs and stuff like that, you would see gaps and stuff. And so it's so well done. And yeah, everything you already mentioned about it being chaotic, but in a good way. It still feels incredibly cohesive with the color design, having the dark green for the pub. You've got the white and black for the Tudor. That style of building is interesting because it goes with almost any palette combination you could create anyways, because that's just how they painted the sides of those structures. And so in while it does add extra colors to the green and the dark red and the tan that they're using for the kind of middle layer of the building, and then the light blue on the right side with the haberdashery, it feels complementary. It doesn't feel like it's making things more hectic. So just whoever did that had a real great eye for architecture and aesthetic, and just crushed it. And I would say it's probably the best modular, I think, just based off of like, pure completeness. We talked about it when it was announced and when it came out, that it really felt like Lego modulars were turning a corner, and this was like the new era of modular buildings. And so, yeah, I just gotta call that, based off of an original Lego IP, I think this is one of the greatest sets Lego's made in 2025.
You know how it's a good Lego set is that looking at it from the box, right, or from photos, you're like, that's a good set, right? That's maybe the best modular. And then when you build it, you're like, that's a fantastic set. I mean, you don't want to overhype it in your mind because you don't want to be disappointed, right? You're managing your own expectations, but somehow the expectations that you set up, even if they are really high, aren't high enough for this set.
Yeah.
It's just, it's very good. So the best set based off an original IP, or the best original set for 2025, is the Tudor Corner. What about the best licensed set, or a non-original IP? West, why don't you go through your nomination?
Well, there's so much to choose from because Lego now is doing so much outside of kind of original IPs. And we've talked about that over the years. But the one that just stands out for me this year is the Lego F1 collaboration. And specifically, I think the best sets in that line are the Speed Champion F1 cars that they've made this year. And just to recap, they made all 12 of the current F1 competing teams. Each F1 team competes 2 cars, so you're not getting both cars, but you're getting a car. You're getting sort of a nondescript driver, so they're not necessarily the drivers of those cars. But that's been really awesome to see. They just made these F1 cars like a few years ago, so kind of the big examples that they just repeated: the Mercedes car, the Aston Martin car, and the McLaren car all got kind of updated, but then they added to the paddock with every single other car. I personally bought the Ferrari and the Red Bull ones because I thought those were kind of interesting IPs and licensed to get with Lego. But what really stood out was the year or two that separated these 2 cars. You can still, it's sort of funny, you can see like the old McLaren one still on the shelf, and the new McLaren one right next to it, and they're priced a little differently, but it's like, why would anyone pick that old one when you have this new one in front of you if you have no other limitations? It's just the cars look so much better. I think the risk that a lot of us were thinking when we first saw the announcement was you have 12 versions of the same thing, but each car has little subtle differences in how the model is designed that just, I think, really kind of take it to the next level. Uh, so it's just really exciting to see. They're fun to put together. They did a collaboration with the Lego F or the F1 movie is an F1 car. So that's just, I think across the board, this year was an incredible license, and I think probably the best one they've had.
Yeah, I don't disagree. My challenge, and it's funny because I've actually nominated this for another category, and let's see if you pick mine and if you agree with mine, and otherwise I'll rebuttal because I'll share my thought with the other one anyway. So for me, the best license set, in my opinion, is not the Black Pearl, the Captain Jack Sparrow's pirate ship. And I think this would be unanimous, no doubt, had the price been better. I think, you know what I mean? I mean, I really do. The reason I give this one a little bit of leeway on the price is because it's a one-off, right? And I think that's
Yeah.
probably why it's priced the way that it is. It's also a Lego boat, right? If you want to be an investor for a moment, they typically have good resale value. But the one thing that's really hard for price to part to capture is the sales. So I give a little bit of leeway here. Now they're probably cheaper for Lego to make, right? But it is a whole different process. So that's something. But talking about the set, right? If I can ignore the price for a moment, what an awesome function with the cannons.
Yeah.
One of my biggest issues with the original Black Pearl, because this is nowhere even close to this set, right? I mean, it's not. One of my biggest issues though with that original Black Pearl, and I bought it on the secondary market, like, so it's not one I had laying around since 2012. Like I spent a lot of money on it. It was the cannons. I didn't like the cannons. It came with two of them. They were also the dark or red, or I guess it was a brown cannon. So one of mine broke. It's a $20 piece, by the way. So I got another one. I was incredibly careful with it. Thank God it didn't break. But on this one, there's a full line of cannons on each side of the vessel. Number one.
Yeah.
Number two, there is a incredible play feature or mechanism that actually allows you to position the cannons, ready to fire. I'm sure there's some technical term for that. There's some really nice part usage here with some black sausages for the window frames. The boat itself is fairly massive too. They also don't use the traditional cannon piece, so you do get a really clean view of the cannon opening through the window. Right, it's a better scale than that traditional piece. So I really like that they went
cannon.
Correct. I really like that they went that direction with it, versus using the molded piece. There's also the way that they've captured the bowing of the bow of the ship is second to none. It really, when you take this thing off the stand, it looks like it's floating properly in water. And then that angle at which you take to get to that captain's quarters is also just incredible. So there's a lot to love here from a technique standpoint, from a play feature standpoint, from a playability standpoint, from a minifigure standpoint too. As somebody who collects Pirates of the Caribbean, who has all of the sets for Pirates of the Caribbean, I'm not necessarily super disappointed that this doesn't have Davy Jones in it. because we got new characters, right? It's not like we got
Yeah.
updated versions of characters we already had 6 of, right? We got quite a few new characters in it, and we got a couple of characters that we had very limited releases of. It was not Marcus or Davy Jones, but we did get some other ones that were just as limited. So overall, I just it's worth the added price, and that's where I bring back the price, recognizing that it is not a 10-cent per piece ratio, right? It is worse. It is bad in that regard. But in my mind, this is worth it.
Yeah. No, that's a really great point. And we've kind of talked about and sort of asked for more of this. And so this is just this highly detailed ship. It's, if you had to pick a boat from the Pirates of the Caribbean series, like this is it. And what a pick it is. So I totally buy that, Grinch. I think it's a wonderful pick for a licensed set this year. This isn't going to be the first time where we kind of both nominate the same set, but in different sections. I was actually ready to nominate this one for some of the better minifigures this year, but I don't really have a lot to compare it to. So yeah, I think this is a good one, and I think a wonderful pick. I did want to call out, it's been inspiring me. You were talking about it. Today is the Army-Navy game here in the United States where West Point and Annapolis play each other. It's a bitter rivalry that goes back and forth and in college football. But it reminded me of the USS Constitution, which has inspired the uniforms this year for the Naval Academy. And I was like, man, I really want a USS Constitution out of Lego.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, well, it's a warship, right? Like, could you do that? And then I was like, well, what other countries would have really interesting warships? And the one that stands out to me is the HMS Victory from England.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually think Lego could do both of these warships. Interesting caveat is both of them are still technically, I know it is true for the HMS Victory. I don't know if it's true for the USS Constitution. Both are still technically in the fleet. Like they are maintained as active warships. And so while they don't actually sail or go to war, they're still kind of, on the books as a warship. Those would be such a cool design. Those are just, the HMS Victory, you have a wooden model of it. It's a 3-decked gunboat with just cannons all over the place. I think it's historical enough that Lego could get away with it, is sort of my thought there. Just kind of like how they got away with the biplanes and triplanes from World War I. But I don't know. Maybe not. But we talked about after the Endurance, what other boats is Lego going to explore? I think those ones are perfect.
I think they're great selections, and I think if this set has inspired you to think that way, then it's clearly the best licensed set of.
I think so too, and I know I'm digressing, so I appreciate you giving me a chance to go down a little rabbit hole there. But let's press with our selections. But yes, I think the Black Pearl is our best set based on a license.
I
So
do think
next, oh, sorry,
caveat, last year, part of the reason we chose 4 sets was so that we could get just a little bit more representation.
Yeah.
All the Trekkies out there, we know Star Trek exists. It's just not our favorite, right? It is equally, a good technical marvel from Lego to create that saucer the way that they did. But I think this is going to be a award that gets harder and harder to get a consensus agreement on as Lego really starts to partition off on different IPs, right? So I just want the listeners to keep that in mind, is we do know other sets exist. We're purposely just coming with one each to make sure that we can talk about each in give each justice while we talk about it.
We also have more categories that kind of are all overlapping. And so, not to spoil anything, but there's a category in the future where something like the Star Trek set might be nominated. So just, hold your horses. Don't, hit pause and skip to the next podcast. Give us a chance, guys. Give us a chance. So, all right, well, let's talk about the next set or the next category, the best fantasy set. And Grinch, why don't you share your nomination?
Well, West, I have selected the Shire, specifically the Lord of the Rings, the Shire, which is also just Hobbiton. Well, not just Hobbiton, sorry, it's just Bag End. It's a good set. It's another one where the price was a little icky.
I mean,
A
not
lot of
comparatively though. Like $300 is a lot easier to swallow than like.
well, yeah, 270 versus 380 is yeah. So it was good in that regard. It's not perfect though, so I'm not going to defend it too hard. But Lord of the Rings is my favorite theme, far to none. It's the best. It's my favorite. So I needed to get it on here somewhere, and this is where I felt like there were some really close seconds, like the Guardian Dragon for me. There was even the mystical dragon, I think is what it was called. The creator set that was really cool. That green creator dragon. I actually almost put that over the Shire, but like I had to get my Lord of the Rings on here. It's really good. The one thing is it does need some updating and upgrading. But when we talk about specifically a fantasy set, I put it here versus the IP discussion because I do think from a technical standpoint, the Black Pearl is just better, right? I think the Black Pearl is a better set than this. From a fantasy standpoint, though, this set gives me a lot of excitement and adventure. We talked about one of the potential flaws with it was that it kind of felt like they added in different scenes to just kind of up the bulk, therefore to up the price, right? Like if you had, the little Gandalf arrives that maybe would have been 20 or $30 and a bad price to part ratio. Like, let's just add that on here. So this one looks bigger, right? Let's just make this look bigger and bigger and bigger. That's where in this case, I think it's good because it does allow you to really play out a lot of these different scenes, right? It's not just a dust collector per se. It is a true diving into this fantasy world that is Middle Earth, that is the Shire, right? These scenes are representative of a lot of the different scenes that we see in the movie, from Bilbo's birthday, the fireworks, right, to the Gandalf arrives, to even some of the interactions with some of the random characters like the Proudfoots, right? Or Proud Feet, sorry. So I think all of that, this set makes me feel like, hey, we're going on an adventure, just like Bilbo said before, the Hobbit. So it is still a very good set, despite its flaws. I think it's flawed because of the price and because it doesn't deserve a price that inflated, like in my opinion, the Black Pearl does.
Yeah.
Had this have been $230, it's a very different conversation.
Yeah.
But I'll leave it there.
No, I think it's a wonderful nomination, and I've already, over the year shared my thoughts and feelings on this set, which is I think it's a great set. I'd like to speak to the Guardian Dragon, which is my nomination.
Go right ahead. I was right there with you.
I know you were. This set, and full disclosure, I do not own this set, so I can't speak from that perspective. So I'm only speaking from like a perspective of admiring from afar. But boy, oh boy, when this one came out, between this one and the mech that came out, it really felt like Ninjago grew up and was playing at a level that we'd never seen before. And so I just really wanted to call that out with both the mech set and this Guardian Dragon set in a way that I think just deserves at least nomination here in Best Fantasy Set, because both set us up with just these really interesting characters that really felt a lot more mature than kind of the standard Spinjitzu Ninjago shenanigans that the kind of original theme and TV show is based off of. They felt darker. They felt like a little more dangerous. I believe it was the mech set where I think he is either in the image, or I don't remember if it's in real life, but he's like, there's like some tentacled monster he's fighting, and he's got like his, I don't know if it's his staff or I mean, he's like actively beating on this like big tentacle monster,
Oh,
and
that's
so
in
like,
real life and in the image.
well, there we go. It just, like I said, it just felt edgier than what we've ever really gotten before, and definitely deserved like a second look at Ninjago, and it really made me appreciate the theme more than what we had ever, or than I really ever have in the past. And so I just wanted to nominate that as just this really cool addition to the Ninjago kind of oeuvre and kind of theme as a whole. And so my nomination for best fantasy set is that Guardian Dragon.
Like I said, I almost put this one myself. I can't disagree with anything you've said. I actually even have these on my wish list because I'm just kind of like, the meme, the jealous girlfriend meme, where the guy's walking down the street and he's looking back and the girlfriend's like, hey, and he's like, ooh. Um, Anytime I go to the Lego store and I see this on the shelf, that's me. Like, it's like whatever I'm there to get, and I'm like, hey, hey. um, it's a good set. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it is, and I think I'm just waiting. Like, I have it actually on my wanted list on Lego, both of them, because I just don't know if they're ever gonna do something like this. I think I'm gonna keep the box if I get them, because like we talked about it. Like, this inspired the box art episode, and yeah, like it's yeah. I'm just kind of waiting. Like, I just give me an excuse. Like, go put it on sale, and I'll go get it.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
put it on sale, and I'll be like, I will be there. I just don't want to spend $300 on both of them. It's a little bit less than that. I think it's $270, but like,
Yeah.
the longer it sits on there, the closer and closer my cursor gets to hitting buy now. So, yeah, yeah.
Well, Grinch, the real question is, did I change your mind?
Don't make me say it. Don't make me say it. Why don't you tell the listeners what our the best fantasy set of 2025 is?
Well, I will say I have nominated the Shire later. If that makes you feel better, if you feel obligated to get it on the winners list, there's another opportunity.
Okay.
I think
Okay.
I think we're both good with calling the Guardian Dragon set the best fantasy set of 2025.
Well, Wes, what about the best sci-fi set of
Ooh.
2025?
Okay, I don't have like a long spiel for this one, but this is where I had to throw the Star Trek Enterprise set in. Just between kind of all of the heavy hitters that we got for sci-fi this year. Obviously, in Star Wars, we had technically our fourth remake of the Death Star in some capacity, uh, which I think in its own right deserves its own recognition for what it is. We've gotten some really great stuff with, I don't know, do we call dreams fantasy or sci-fi, science fantasy? I think,
Yeah, I guess.
yeah. I think the Star Trek set just really, for what it is, deserves a lot of recognition. This is a set that is big in scale. It's complex technically because of the structure that you have to build inside. It features a large dome disc as kind of the main feature of the ship, and it has
It's
sort of like
big
a
too.
big pillar and body and big engines sticking out the back. I'm sure the model gets balanced with the engines back there, but the designers had to create an internal structure that was detailed enough, but at the same time light enough that you're not seeing this thing sag. There's complex sloping and curving that's going on. I just think the model that we got is a fantastic model, and it's one that I think all Star Trek fans who've been waiting for the Enterprise and Lego can be extremely proud of.
Mhm.
So my nomination for best sci-fi set is the Star Trek Enterprise.
Well, Mr. West, I've got a doozy. I have the gingerbread AT-AT Walker, the sweet treat itself. And the reason I have selected it is because we've had gingerbread Lego before, right? At the time of recording, we just had the gingerbread train gift with purchase. But a gingerbread AT-AT Walker is like something that I didn't even see coming or like even remotely see come. I mean, like I just wasn't even on the bingo card or even like wasn't even on the short list of items that didn't make the bingo card, right? It is so far out of left field. And I really liked the gingerbread Darth Vader that was included. Like those are the things as like a collector that I really like. It got me excited about a Star Wars set, which is not an easy thing to do. Uh, and I really like the size of AT-AT. I hope we get something like that in the future that's not gingerbread. um, but yeah, I mean, I got at the end of the day, I think we have to give it to Star Trek, right? Because this has been like long wanted and well done finally, right? Whereas this is just kind of out of left field. It's maybe more of a deep hit for some folks, but I do really like the gingerbread AT-AT, and I just had to make sure it got onto the list somewhere because I like the
Wow.
ingenuity of it.
No, I think it's a worthy nomination. And this is another set where the price per part ratio here is so good. It's
Well,
incredibly good. And
it's
for a
9
Star
or
Wars
something like
set
that, right? Yeah.
in 2025, like,
Yeah.
wow.
Wow.
And it's surprising because it feels like this kind of captures a whimsy that a Star Wars has kind of not played with. And also it's something different. And it was
Mhm.
something that the Dark Falcon in this Rebuilder series, Rebuild the Galaxy series, I think was trying to go for, but didn't succeed at doing. And ironically, just a gingerbread version of an AT-AT was like exactly what everyone was like, oh, this is really cool. I had multiple people in my school, in my class, who commented on this one as just really liking this. And so
Hmm.
I think a lot of people who do any sort of Lego holiday collecting or building are buying this gingerbread AT-AT because it's just so much fun. So I think that's a wonderful nomination, Grinch.
So are we giving it to Star Trek then? Or are we gonna give it to the gingerbread? Because like I am so down to give it to this gingerbread AT-AT. Like we're
I
not
think we got to
Trekkies,
give it to Star
so
Trek, but yes, yeah.
okay, all right.
Well, for our next nomination, we have the best real life vehicle set. And Grinch, what did you nominate for the best real life vehicle?
So I like small Lego sets, right? And I like
Yeah.
small Lego sets that are well done. And I knew some speed champions may end up on this list, but I personally had to go with the Fast and the Furious S2000. Well, the Fast and the Furious is not a real life thing. The S2000 is.
It very
And
much is.
as an S2000, they did a good job with this car. They did a really good job with the car. I just built it not too long ago. And it was funny because it was one of those that like I immediately put on my wanted list. Like I knew I was going to get it, but I didn't have to get it day one. So I just waited for it. And I thought it was really funny that I went to the Lego store months after it released and was like, "Oh, do you guys not have the S2000?" And like, "Yeah, no, we can't keep it in stock." And I was like, "Oh, really?" And like, "Yeah, we just had some like a few weeks ago, and they're gone." And I'm like, "Oh." So I think it sold pretty well too. It was hard to even find out in, it's one that like I would go to Target or Walmart or something and be like, "Oh, I'm gonna go pick up that set," and it just wasn't there. So I finally was just like, "All right, I just have to go and like go make a purchase on Lego.com and go get this thing." So I did, and the build did not disappoint. The only thing I'd say was a little disappointing is not the fact that there were stickers. It's the fact that part of the graphic design on the side of it was a print and part of it was a
Mhm,
sticker. Like
mhm,
you couldn't
mhm.
have just gone the full way with it. Like don't do one and not do the other sort of situation. Like, come on. So I would say that was a little bit disappointing. Which is why I'm not fighting for this one harder. But as far as being based on a real life vehicle set, like if you like Fast and the Furious, right? If you like this style of early 2000s street racing vehicle or just kind of sportster, like it's a good one. It's a good one.
Yeah. No, it is a wonderful set, and the S2000 is beloved by car enthusiasts. So to get a Lego S2000 not only totally makes sense, but is like a wonderful inclusion. And I'd say the only thing that I think kind of is a detractor from this one is it highlights the challenge with Lego Speed Champions and the 8 wide scale that they've switched to, which is this car is definitely like this is a Mazda Miata sized car, and compared to the minifigure is like 1.5 times the size it needs to be, which is just kind of, it's not like, I don't know, if you're a stickler for scale, it's just not maybe the best, but everything else looks great. The new windscreen piece that they used on it looks fantastic. It's got the A-pillar printing on it that is starting to trickle into Speed Champions more and more. So yeah, I think that's a great inclusion, Grinch.
What do you think is a better inclusion, West?
Well, the one that I wanted to throw out here that I think is just a really cool real life vehicle is the NASA SCA, the shuttle carrying aircraft. And this set I picked for a couple of reasons. One, as kind of the aviation nerd on the podcast, I had to highlight just how cool it was to get another large airplane after we got the Airbus Concorde. And so getting a Boeing variation of this has been really cool. Getting a 747 has been really exciting. But what I really like about this one is not only the detail of the 747, but we also get a very nice space space shuttle, basically. And we had the Discovery set from a few years ago, which was really great. But to see kind of another version of that, a little bit smaller, but still just as detailed included, I thought was really, really cool. And then I just wanted to highlight like these airplane models just do an incredible job of uh, layering all these different techniques of brick sculpting, of complex Technic builds, of really just model design. The one thing with this one that I have to call out is the wings are actually bent up slightly, which is realistic for airplanes. And that requires, they're not only built at a weird angle, but then they're built at a weird angle. And much like the UCS Falcon, the wings are then bent upwards using some hinge pieces, and it's just the way that they've been able to capture all that is just really, really cool. And then the movement that you get with the landing gear, and in this case, like the 4 main gear that all kind of collapse at the same time, or retract and extend, is just, I think, an awesome build. So I just wanted to shout out to the NASA SCA. It's a really unique airplane in real life. They're not around anymore, unfortunately, but they were really unique airplanes in real life. So it's kind of a deep hit. And then for Lego, it's not really a repeat, but if you recall in the early 90s, they had a space series where they kind of created their own version of the SCA for Lego Space. So in that way, too, I kind of like how it maybe unintentionally pays homage to some older Lego sets.
Yeah, I mean, I like the homage to the older Lego sets, and I'll let you kind of speak to the real life technical comps to a airplane. And I think the one thing I'll say is West, you did a hour-long episode on Lego airplanes, and this set got you excited. So you're the Lego airplane nerd, and you're real excited about this set. So I think, to me, that speaks for itself. So if you approve of this one, I approve of this one. So we'll give it to the NASA craft here.
Well, I appreciate it and I approve.
Well, just remember this, West, as the list goes on. No.
Fair enough.
Up next, we're taking a continuing this trek down the real life, and we're going to talk about the best historical set. So Wes, for me, the set I've brought to the table for the best historical set is maybe one you might have forgot about. And it's it's one where, in Harry Potter, they did these little, the little flying characters, right? They did the dragon, the owl, fox, the phoenix. And it's cool to see a similar mechanism be used, or a similar design be used outside of that, because with the Hedwig, it was cool. With the fox, it was cool. And then with the Hungarian Horntail, it's kind of like, okay, we got it. We don't need 17 more of these things. But this one was really cool, and that is the Leonardo da Vinci's flying machine. First of all, it's a Leonardo da Vinci minifigure. Like, that's awesome, right? Artist, designer, like, huge historical figure. I've been a sucker for the historical Lego set gift with purchases that they've done. RIP Goodall. Now we can call that one a historical one too, right? But they did the Jane Austen. They've done the
Jules Verne,
Galileo, the Jules Verne, right? I mean, they've done
Gustav Eiffel.
the Eiffel, right? So they kind of had a sub series going, and when I immediately saw this, I'm like, oh, that'll look perfect on that shelf. It's another kind of just a one-off historical set, right? And what a better character than, who would be a better character than Leonardo da Vinci to represent that, and the flying machine. And I like to see how that technique kind of also came back with it, right? It was one, it was a design that I was bored with in the Harry Potter line, that, like, as soon as it went to something else, I was like, that's really cool. That got me excited. Let's do that. So that's the set I brought to the table, the Leonardo da Vinci's flying machine. And it was funny, this was actually one I was like, wait, wasn't that a 2024 set? Nope, it was a January 2025 set. So she's on the list.
You got it. Nice, Grinch. Well, I think that's a wonderful nomination, and I completely agree with all of your points. The one that I would like to nominate, and I apologize for maybe mispronouncing this, so I'm going to do my best, is the Neuschwanstein Castle from the Lego Architecture series.
Gesundheit.
This castle is one of it. If you like Google a German castle, I guarantee this pops up. If not the first picture, like one of the first pictures. It's like this quintessential castle on a mountainside design. Not only is the real building just absolutely stunning, the way they were able to capture it in Lego, just, I mean, everything about it, it's instantly recognizable in a way that you get, like, Lego architecture is really cool, right? Because you get to see these really awesome buildings recreated in Lego architecture. But when, like, Lego does the Empire State Building, for example, you don't see it in the city of other buildings that are, extremely tall. And so you don't really get the feeling of it in the context. It's just sort of isolated on its own. This castle, you do get just a little bit of the rock build and the structure. You see the rocks and part of the mountainside along with the building. And so it not only gives you the building itself, the castle itself, but that context for where the castle is set. And I think that is such a big player in what makes that castle so special. So to see the way Lego is able to capture all of that, I just think is incredibly cool. And I think really elevates that architecture line to kind of that next level. So I think it's a really cool way to see that.
This is a pretty Lego set, right? it's a pretty Lego set. I'm a sucker for different angles in Lego, and this does it well. It's part of the reason why I like these larger castle sets that they've done in Lego too. It's because you get some really cool, like built angles and different kind of design choice when you're kind of structurally creating these Lego sets. We've talked about it too. It's sometimes, and I think in most cases, is a larger challenge to build something smaller than it is to build something at scale, right? Because you have less freedom and room to kind of do things. You have to get more creative with the solutions. that you have to build, the building solutions that you need to properly represent some areas. So you do get some nice part usage. But yeah, overall, I just felt like the difference for me came down to the fact that I bought the Leonardo da Vinci flying machine. I didn't get this one. But I
No,
can't disagree that this is still a good selection in my mind.
and that's fair. And I mean, from an architecture series standpoint, this set is priced at $280, which I forgot that it was that expensive. I thought it was closer
Yeah,
to
but
like
the price to part
$100.
ratio is 7 cents per part, West.
I mean, it's a pretty great price to part ratio. But so this is, a significantly large building here. And I think I would agree the Leonardo da Vinci set for what it is not only cheaper, but also I think has just some, what made Da Vinci's ideas so special was things like the movement that you didn't really get to see in real life because he's drawing it, right? He never really created these things, but Lego being able to kind of create that movement respectfully in the model, I think makes it really come to life. So
Yeah, I think this one was just cool because I don't think we'll ever get anything like it again, right?
no, agreed.
So wait a second, we're saying the one I picked was the best one?
We've said that a couple of times. We've
All
said
right,
that.
West. The set with the best minifigures. Let's see if Grinch can go back to back.
I think you might. This one I really struggle with Grinch, so I'll just kind of come out and throw out my nomination here, and because I think you not only have a better argument, but I think it's not for a bunch of different reasons. So my nomination is the Republic Juggernaut, and I just wanted to call out just getting those Galactic Marines for the first time in Lego. I think is really special. We sort of not only made fun of this last episode, but to see these characters finally get here in Lego was really, really cool. They're not overly complicated. I mean, they're snowtroopers with a different color of like cloth material. So this wasn't a hard build for Lego, but we finally got them. I think it's exciting to see if anyone's like trying to recreate some Battlefront 2 stuff. Like, here you go. It's a really cool minifigure to finally see in Lego, and that is literally my only argument, and I've just been repeating it over and over again. So other than that, I mean, some nominations that I thought through. I thought like the Death Star had some great minifigures. I know some people said maybe not. We got some really interesting ones. I think on that one, obviously the Lord of the Rings still in my mind are the best minifigures Lego's ever created. Nothing has convinced me otherwise. The Enterprise had great minifigures. The Black Pearl set. I mean, there were some wonderful minifigures this year. So, but Grinch, why don't you share your nomination? Winner.
Well,
Why don't you share your winner?
I think I have to like explain it because I feel like on paper people may disagree, especially if you like Star Wars, right? Because the Galactic Troopers are yeah, like that's fair, very fair. Something people wanted for a while. Something else people have been asking for a while is the Fantastic Four. And it was rumored that Lego did not release after they did that original wave of X-Men set back in 2012 and I think and some of 2013. It was rumored that Disney had approached them and like, don't do that. We're not trying to support those other franchises until Fox gives them back, sort of thing. So that was the rumor of why we didn't get Fantastic Four, because just like in the MCU, it was a big missing piece of the puzzle, right? For so many years, it wasn't there. In your example, the Republic Marines, right? The Galactic Marines, whatever they're called, is another very similar story, right? It's not hard to make, right? In this case, it's literally just printing, right? In your case, it might be an updated mold or two, but they're behind an $180 price tag.
They are.
The reason I think the Fantastic Four is the set with the best minifigures, and specifically it's the Fantastic Four versus Galactus, is because it's the only set you needed to get all 4 of the first family, right?
Yeah.
And Lego could have, and maybe they did a little bit inflate the price, right? Because I think it was $60 for that set, but it had all 4 of them in it.
Which is
If they
not
were
a
being
common
greedy,
occurrence.
right? Yeah, I mean, if they were being greedy, they could have done 4 sets, price $30, $50, $80, and $100, right? I mean, they could have done that. They could have done 2 sets, right? They could have left one out, right? Because, well, we only had the budget for too many figures in here, and you really only need 2 of them to complete the scene, whatever, right? Like, instead, we got all 4 of them in a very reasonably priced Lego set for 2025. It's below the median price threshold, right? That we talked about last week. And so overall, like, if you're a Fantastic Four fan, this is the only set you need to get, right? And it's a third of the price of the Republic Juggernaut and has 200 less pieces. So, bam, take that. But no, I think, credit is due where credit's deserved, right? Or credit's deserved or credit's due, whatever. Giving Lego credit here, right? For coming out with a set that included the complete selection of minifigures that you need, because that's not the normal, stance. That's not what normally occurs. It does happen, but it does not always happen, especially on a smaller or lesser priced set like this one. And they've been characters people have been waiting for a long time in Lego form.
Yeah.
So credits deserve where credits due.
I would agree. You could see something like the Black Panther sets from the original Black Panther movie, where they had 2 separate sets and kind of divided up the minifigures, or they created overlap. And I think a famous example within the MCU of this was like the Eternal sets, where there was 7 Eternal sets at the end of the day. And if you wanted
five,
there was a decent way for what the movie was, and especially for Marvel these days. But if you wanted all of them, like all of the Eternals characters, you had to buy all of the sets, right? Or at least a good chunk of them. And that has, like you said, been kind of the game plan of most of these sort of franchises for the while. So to get one set with everybody in it and at a decent price, I just think is like a really great move.
It's awesome.
Yeah. Like, I just, like, let's leave it at that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I think we caveated it because it wasn't a like hugely beloved set, right? They didn't fly off the shelf, right? The movie did fine. So I think this is one where maybe I'm selling the audience on it a little better.
Yeah. I would say probably a good case, though, where the movie did really well from a critical perspective compared to maybe some of the last few kind of entries into the series. I'm thinking of, while we got this one Fantastic Four set with a movie that performed, I think, better than everyone expected, we got 5 Jurassic World sets. The movie was,
that movie did perform better than Fantastic Four, though, from a monetary standpoint.
Well, yeah, maybe in the international box office. So fair enough.
Dinosaur Go Burr. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyways, I think interesting how even as a side-by-side comparison, it's a good example of where you see characters from the movie being separated in as many sets as possible versus the other way around. So, yeah.
Well, let's reimagine, re-release, or remaster a set next, West. What is your selection for the best remastered, reimagined, or re-released Lego set?
Well, I'm smiling because this is the we've actually both already talked about the 2 nominations for the series, so I think this one will kind of breeze through
the
quickly.
Opposite person will be talking about the So Wes, why don't you tell the listeners what won?
Yeah. I mean, I'm happy to call it the Shire, but so I've nominated the Shire for this one.
Let's go.
I just think this is, not only was it a better version of the bag end than we got in the one from The Hobbit, ironically.
Yeah, also the
It,
first Lord of the Rings version of Bag End, right? The other
yep,
one was a Hobbit set.
yep. I think it looks really great. I do hear the criticism that some of the sculpting on it still isn't perfect. I would argue, though, if you saw the original Bag End, not only was that almost, I think, objectively worse, but there was areas where the sculpting sort of blatantly, there were corners kind of just missing because there wasn't a piece to sort of fill those corners. And these days, the corners on this set were done a lot better. So I get it, right? Sculpting a hill out of Lego is really, really challenging in the defense of the Lego designer. So I think what we got was fantastic. I think all of your points about the price we've already talked about ad nauseum on this podcast. So I don't want to kind of revisit that necessarily, but I just, as a reimagined set, I think this one just really crushed it this year.
So I just want to play back what you said about the F1 sets, because my nomination was any of the F1 Speed Champion sets. But specifically, where you talked about like, hey, even if this was on shelf next to the original version that they did of a F1 car, these are better, even though the price is slightly higher, right?
Yeah.
The one thing that I kind of teased up at the beginning when we originally talked about it is, and ultimately why I'm like hands down the Shire, is these are not Lord of the Rings cars. No, it's I feel like the F1 sets do better as a whole, as a series, right? In both cases, you and I have said any of the F1 Speed Champions, right? We haven't picked a specific one, and some of that is because it's it's your fandom, right? But if there was just one, I don't think it would have been as exciting. And when we're talking about the best set, we're not talking about the best series of sets, right?
No, that's fair.
And I think, and maybe there's some credit for Lego there for not just being like, oh, we're just gonna pick the 3 that we think will sell the best. Like we're gonna lose some money in some areas, and then we're gonna have to come out with 3 new ones next year because, 3 of the other, 3 of the old teams aren't going to be a part of a F1 anymore, or however it works, right? Like, but that's where I think I have issues with the F1 as a series. So I don't have a F1 set to nominate. Maybe the Red Bull one, because I think the color scheme's the coolest. But that's ultimately what it comes down to. So, but I did, for all the reasons you said up front, where, you're talking about exactly kind of what I had just repeated of, it's the best version of the F1 car they've done, right?
Yeah.
From a speed champion standpoint.
And I do want to highlight one more thing that sets that series apart. Yes, we both picked the Shire on this one, so like I'm not trying to undermine that selection. I just want to continue to praise the F1 series for 1 second. The really cool thing that they did this year is by doing all 12 cars in the current F1 paddock, the teams in F1 are a lot like the teams in Major League Baseball or the Premier League in, football, in that not every single team is a juggernaut. Not every single team is the New York Yankees. Yes, the New York Yankees exist in F1 for real. That is teams like Ferrari, McLaren, teams like Red Bull Racing, some of these major F1 teams that just can pour a ton of money into cars, into research and design, into drivers. But there's also the Oakland A's of F1 teams as well, or the Crystal Palaces of the Premier League, if you will. I think that's a fair comparison. Grinch, you'll have to correct me if that football comparison isn't quite correct there. But the underdog,
harsh.
you wouldn't call Crystal Palace an underdog?
No, they are, but
Okay,
might be being a little nice to Crystal Palace and a little harsh to the F1 team. Yeah.
Well, but these are the scrappy teams that are that they can't wreck a car on a weekend because they don't have backup cars. They are.
Crystal Palace is pretty good this year, though. So I will call that out. They're in 5th.
There you go.
At time of recording, still very early.
And there's F1 teams that do well, but these are the teams like Haas, Alpina or Alpine. I apologies if I got that wrong. These are the you know the teams that are not necessarily always the ones on top. I mean, F1 has kind of had its own issue with just teams always being really good, and it's hard to beat them. But anyways, I think Lego, by not selecting just the good teams like McLaren, for example, and by doing everybody, I think that just the way that sort of creates like a little bit of an equity, I think is really, really cool. And so I just wanted to kudos Lego for doing that, because you're not going to get that in the future again on whatever F1 wave comes next, in my mind, unless it's a complete wave again. And so I just think that's really neat.
Absolutely. And so I have a lot of credit and respect for the wave of sets, right? Versus
Yeah.
an individual set on here. And also we could have obviously also done the Black Pearl here, but then the Shire would have won. So anyways. That would have made me sad. But West, what about our next category, right? We got two more. The next one is the best set based on a video game. And while yours is not necessarily based on a video game, it is based off a video system and a way to play video games.
Yes. So I will caveat with this year for video games in Lego, the theme is growing in scope and scale. And I think over the next year, we're really going to see it take off with some things that we know about, that's been officially announced, things like Pokemon, and some things that haven't been officially announced that are sort of floating in the rumor ether. So I won't speak to that. But the one that really stood out to me this year, because at first I didn't have a nomination for this one, and when I was going to nominate this
I know,
one,
you told me that, and I was like, this was a great nomination. Yeah.
Well, when I originally put the Game Boy set in the next category, which is best set based on everyday life. But when I was like, oh, well, that is, video game adjacent, like, let's do that instead. And so my nomination is the Game Boy. I mean, talk about a case of Lego sculpting at its finest, and, art imitating life in the form of Lego. This set created almost a 1-to-1 scale Lego Game Boy in a way where, when the first pictures of it came out, before they explained that the screens were just like a card, a high what do you call that?
Like a holographic, like
A holographic card. Yes. Sorry, I don't know why that was
lenticular is, I think, the correct term,
yes,
where it's got like the multiple angles and it moves. Yeah.
I mean, it looked like a real game screen, and I think at first glance when it came out, I was like, did they just create a Lego game, like a real Lego Game Boy, like a working Lego Game Boy? And obviously they didn't, but just the level of detail in the model itself, with the game cartridges being able to be removed and replaced, and the different title cards and game cards that you're able to put in, just looked fantastic. So that's my nomination for best video game set this year.
I was not going to make the same mistake twice, and that was not to get this set. I almost didn't get the NES until I watched a particularly large YouTuber's review of it. And it was one of those sets where I was like, why did I watch that? Okay, all right, let's go get it. Let's go find it online before it retires. And that's created this kind of sub collection. I've really enjoyed it from Nintendo, right? Because they kind of do one set a year, and those are perfect to collect, because you don't go too overboard and you get a little bit of something new every year. But anyways, great choice. This Game Boy is phenomenal. And spoiler alert for Lego Masters Australia, you've been warned. There is, I think it was season 4, there was a challenge where they were bringing a team back, and they had to build something, and they built a game. Was it a Game Boy? I think it was it might have been a different version of the Game Boy, but they built one, and it was close, but it was nowhere near. I mean, it was very respectable, right? Especially for like having 8 hours to do it or whatever time they did. But there was some kind of and the reason I'm saying this is to not compare the two. It's to elevate this one on just an absolute pedestal, because when you looked at it, it was like, wow, that was really close, right? It was a really good attempt, but like there's just some issues with the Lego system. You'll never be able, like, that's just something you won't be able to do. And I think the Lego group said, hold my beer, but we got this.
I just love like the
Because
tires being used
dang.
as buttons
Yeah.
and stuff. Like
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
looks great.
Really good. For me, though, I nominated a gift with purchase, or I guess an insider rewards, and that is the Mario Kart spiny shell, the blue shell, the infamous blue shell. And I think the only issue I have with this set was it wasn't a retail set. It was a insider's set, right? It was a very limited run. It sold out very quickly. It's really good. It's a very, I mean, it would have been just an excellent $20 set, right? Or $30 set. It really would have been. It was well done. The shaping's really good. And the one thing I like about it is there's not any like prints or anything like that, right? It's just brick built, and it is a very good set. It's solid. There's kind of nothing else I could really add, that just like it its goal is to create a Mario Kart blue shell, and it does that very, very well. So for me, I think though it just like the Game Boy does that, really it sets out to meet its goal really, really well. I think the Game Boy overall is a more impressive build, considering while the Mario Kart spiny shell is not specialized pieces, it does use a lot of larger, kind of less used pieces to do that, whereas the Game Boy does do stuff like a tire for the pause button, right? Stuff like that, right? So I think that's really, really cool.
Nice.
Yeah, so I think ultimately what it comes down to is the Game Boy is just better, right? As far as what it is trying to achieve. The Mario Kart spiny shell does have, I think, some undesirable gaps in the shaping of it. So, if I was nitpicking, right? So, agreed. Great nomination, West. The Game Boy is the best set based off a video game that was released in 2025. Well, for our last category, we have the best set based on everyday life. So, West, why don't you walk through your nomination?
Well, thank you, Grinch. This one might sound a little odd in that it's maybe not super obvious that it's like an everyday thing, but the set that I wanted to highlight here was the Sherlock Holmes book nook. Now, I wanted to highlight two things. One, it's not the only book nook we got. So we had a Harry Potter one. We had the Lord of the Rings book nook as well. But of all of those kind of high-end book nooks that we got this year, the Sherlock Holmes one really spoke to me. And I wanted to just highlight it, not only because it's the first version of Sherlock Holmes that we've ever gotten, which feels odd to say out loud, in Lego, that is. But it also just, I think, looks fantastic. It's a really well done version of Baker Street, and it also just folds in half in a way that when you have it completely open, you don't, like, the seam is not obvious. It's the middle building that actually folds in half, and it creates an angled walkway, which is just really cool because it creates that version of depth in this book nook that when it is closed, you still see so much of the book nook from the outside that I think takes a lot of technical skill to set up in that way. So I'm just really happy to see Sherlock Holmes finally represented in Lego. You get this really cool kind of English, walkway and street, and I just think there's a lot to like here.
But to clarify, the everyday life aspect is the English street, right?
Well, that or the fact that it's a book nook, which is not a thing exclusive to Lego. And so yes, yeah, that was kind of my thought process there.
Got it. Okay, so you can use it in everyday life. Oh, on the nose. Got it. Okay. Well,
It's a stretch.
for me, I'm there. I was just clarifying. For me, I nominated the Central Train Station because I'm a sucker for a good train station, and I'm a sucker for a good city set. And I think looking at 2026, that airport is my front runner so far for the best set based off everyday life. But this train station, I think, is done well, and I think it's done. It is designed to add another one to it, right? Or to build off of it, which is good and bad, right? Because sometimes when that happens, you get half of the set, right? I don't think that's the case here, though. I think this set is good enough to stand on its own. It's got an interesting design, right? I like the garage piece, that like large gear piece. I love to see stuff like that, and it is one that excites me. And like let's go get another one and mirror it and put it over here, right? Or let's elongate it or something like that, right? So that's why I really like this set, because the city sets are intended to make a city, right? It's intended to be everyday life, and where this one I think does a really good job at is inspiring you to kind of take that next step in the city, right? It build a little bit more off of it, right? Tell a story using the Lego bricks. And so that's why I brought the Central Train Station to the best set based on everyday life.
I think that's a wonderful pick, Grinch, and I'm actually like Googling, have people combined them to see what that looks like. Because you're absolutely right. This one is just a set that's sort of begging to be stacked by either, two or more versions of this to create more depth to the building. But that quarter geared piece that they use to then layer the garage doors over is one of the best versions of that I think we've ever seen. Lego builders have done that in train stations. They try to make those sort of arched glass ceilings using a variety of techniques. I've actually seen people use train track on its side, and they build sort of in between the train pieces as a way to create that arch framework. But this seems so obvious. Like, why hasn't anyone done it quite like this? And it looks great. The actual building itself is really cool. There's not much more to it other than the facade. So I would say that's maybe the only downside that it has. To your point, it definitely sort of begs being built out. But I really love like the inclusion of that elevator piece too, using that new spiral piece that they made just a few years ago in one of the first inclusions that wasn't a Friends set or like a Gabby's Dollhouse set. And that's one that I feel like begs to be included in all sorts
Gabby's
of sets.
Dollhouse. Oh.
No, not Gabby, the elevator piece. And so, all right.
I got him.
You know what I'm saying. Yeah, it's just really fun. And there's the sticker, which looks like a Harry Potter reference in there, which is kind of cool. The different builds, there's just lots of stuff to love about this set. So, yeah.
Pigeons. Yeah, definitely. All right, West. Well, we have one last category here, or one last award, and that is what is the best set of 2025. And you almost spoiled it at the very beginning when you said this won't happen again, or it will until. So, spoiler alert, Wes. Why don't you tell everybody what the best set of 2025 is?
The set we've nominated to be our best set for 2025
unanimously
is the Tudor Corner. For all the reasons we've already talked about, we just think this is the set for this year.
It has to be, right? I mean, when you have something like the modulars, that's a legendary, right, in the Lego world, right? Like pure and pure, right? Like when you talk about creator expert or icons, you talk about the modulars separately, right? Like if you were to do a tier list, you'd be like, no, let's just rate the modulars on their own because they're their own thing, right? It's a sub theme, but like, and when you have one of, if not the best modular that's ever come out, like, there you go. It's the best set of that year. Like it has to be. So I would say I would have maybe argued the Black Pearl if the price was better.
Yeah.
I think I would have legitimately come with an argument for the Black Pearl if it was $300.
Two tutors. 2 tutors.
Almost 2. You can almost buy 2 tutors for the same price, right? I would have also maybe argued the Shire had the price been better, and then also not only would the price have had to have been better on it, but the trees would have had to have been better.
Yeah.
Or the trees would have had to have been better and you would have had to get a little bit extra more for the price, right? I'm not saying the price necessarily has to come down, but the quality of that set was just not quite where Rivendell was, right? But they were pricing it as if they were continuing banger after banger after banger, right? Like, oh, these idiots will get this. Like, yeah, well, add $50 to it. Everyone's still going to love it to get it. No questions asked. Like, we ain't that dumb, Lego. And I love Lord. I mean, I am a simp for Lego Lord of the Rings. Like I Lego Lord of the Rings, you need a beer because like I'll go get 7 of them for you. Like, what do you need? And so I think those other 2 sets that would come close, or even the Enterprise, you can still argue price, right? I think those other sets that would have come close, like there is something distinctly wrong, or a hole you can poke, right? They're a 4.9 out of 5. They're a 4.8 out of 5. This is a 5.
Yeah,
this
agreed.
is a 5. And that's a
No,
Did
but
you
I mean,
anything
I
else
don't have
to say on the 2?
Not really.
Yeah.
Nothing
that's
else
it.
that
Just
I
mic
think
drop.
we've left it all out there on the table. Yeah.
All right. Well, West, that was the 2025 kind of year in review, right? I mean, we were talking more about the sets this go around with the award show. We focused more on the data last week. We wanted to split it into 2 episodes to make sure we gave, enough time for both conversations, because it's kind of 2 very different conversations, both about 2025 though. So that wraps up the show for this year. Let's go ahead and move over to our final brick mail of 2025.
Let's do it.
Brick mail.
All right, Wes, why don't you take us through the first bit of brick mail here?
Absolutely. So our first brick mail comes from Ziegel 0802. And they write, price per piece is not always the best metric. I prefer price per how much stuff you get. So many of the sets that come out now use very small pieces. The Brick Architect uses price per gram as another metric to gauge the value of the set. I appreciate y'all attempting to debunk the notion that Lego isn't getting more expensive, but the reality is these sets use smaller and smaller pieces. And I think that's really fair. And it's interesting that Ziegel brings up the Brick Architect, because you mentioned, Grinch, that you felt like old sets were on the brick scale, and now the newer sets are kind of in that stud scale. So they're almost like 3 times as more detailed than the older sets were, right? 3 studs for every brick. And so that totally kind of fits with this idea that Ziegel is presenting. And interestingly enough, we've actually had a couple of cases where both us and the Brick Architect have kind of drawn similar conclusions independently. And so we did the same on Lego Scale with minifigures, but we're also kind of doing the same thing here. As we talked about, actually, as soon as, I think it was when we were researching our first episode of is Lego getting too expensive? We talked about it either privately, or I don't recall if it was on the podcast, but alternatives to price per piece. And one of them being like, weight might be the best way to categorize
that.
The
data's a little,
or mass.
And I mean, the Brick Architect, friend of the channel, he does a fantastic job. The databases are a little incomplete with weight.
Yes.
Tom definitely has probably got a scale just to go and weigh out the sets as they come out. So,
Well, and it's challenging, right? Because
very
do you
thorough.
weigh the box and the instructions and
It's part of the material that goes into the cost, right?
I mean, certainly it would. Well, so that's a really great point. So it's not just plastic, right? So,
It's extra plastic around, precious pieces too, right? When you get a dinosaur wrapped in a separate baggie, that adds weight versus just throwing it into the same bag as everything else.
And as you mentioned, when we even pulled the latest BrickSet data set for 2025, there was mass on some of the sets in grams, but we didn't get it for every single set. And so we weren't able to really kind of get a good idea there. The other question or maybe thing that you could ask is mass is a great unit of measure. Would density be a good unit of measure? Mass over volume? Maybe not. Measuring Lego volume would be almost even more difficult than measuring just the mass because, you're not measuring like the box size, right? Because there's so much airspace in there. But then you're having to measure the volume of the pieces, which would be complicated. I think the best way to do that would probably be like immersion in water and just measure like their displacement of water in a big cup or something. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, but there's so much air bubbles get caught on under the pieces, right?
And I will say, while I think that is a worthy thought process to go down as an alternative to price per piece, A, it's not as measurable, but B, runs into the same issue, which is, let's say every Lego piece on average costs 5 cents to make. That doesn't accurately capture things like scarcity of Lego pieces or things like.
Well, I think it's a wrong way of looking at it. Like every Lego piece does not cost 5 cents because of like if you only produce 100 of them, it costs you a minimum of $100 to produce any piece, right? So if you produce 1,000 of them, that $100 goes a lot further. If you produce 100 of them, it goes a tenth, right?
The cost of making a stud, just a regular Lego stud, is a lot lower because of the volume of studs you're creating.
Because you make a bajillion of them
versus a specialized windscreen for one model. And so that's why even price per piece isn't a great measurement tool anyways. It's kind of the best that we have with easily accessible data. But then we even talked about like the fact that, and we don't really have we suspect, I think that's a fair suspicion, that Lego probably prices sets it knows are going to fly off the shelf, maybe just a little bit more than the ones it doesn't. And I think the gingerbread AT-AT is a good example of this, where we had like clearly sets like the Juggernaut this summer were well over what we would call like a standard price per part ratio, and the AT-AT was well under. And so I think this is just, capitalism 101. If there's high demand for one thing, you're going to price it higher. And price per piece can't capture that. Or if it does try to capture it, it shows it as a bad ratio, which isn't really fair. I mean, I guess it is, but like, yeah, I don't know. Grinch, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I think too, like Daniel's saying here is like, so many of the sets now are coming out with very small pieces. And I think that is the issue with price per part, right? Because you could sit here and argue, oh, Lego's not getting more expensive because look, it's still 10 cents per set, right? I mean, that's just that's an issue with pricing price per part by price per part. If I had infinite time and like not a real job and like this is all we did, I would go and get like 100 sets, and I would say, okay, in terms of 1x1 plates, this is how many 1x1 plates this set is. Because I think you need to have a true control factor, right? And I think that's where weight comes into play. Yeah. But even a 1x1 uses less plastic than a 1x2. If you had two 1x1s, which is the same Lego space, right? Those are going to use more plastic because there's going to be a connection point down the middle of it, right? Whereas you won't. That would be open on the 1x2. So
a double wall that would exist.
Correct. You need to control for a factor, right? And I think that's why people use part count and price to control for the value. I
Right.
think if I had all that time, I would just go get a bunch of sets and be like, this set, as far as the number of pieces go, is equivalent to X number of 1x1 plates. Like, so for example, if it had a 1x8 plate, I'd say, well, that's 8 1x1s. If I had a 1x8 brick, I would say that's 24 1x1s.
Yeah.
And just look at it that way, right? And then your controlling factor is the 1x1 conversion. And then I think you could get a good idea of, and I think this is something that mock designers know really all too well, because you'll look at a piece and you'll be like, oh, I'm building this giant thing, and the 1x4 the 1x4 light gray brick is 20 cents per, maybe I think it's like 14. But the 1x4x3 light gray brick is 16 cents per. So it's actually a lot cheaper to build with the 1x4x3, even though it takes up 3 times the amount of space. So there needs to be something that's controlling for that, right? And I think that's why weight is a good way to do it, because nobody has all the time to do some conversion by like counting it down to the 1x1 plate.
And while everything is, and I just want to go back to the specialty of molding for a second, because while everything's made of ABS plastic, and so I think it would be fair to think that like, oh, well then like every piece more or less has to be, the inherent cost to Lego has to be based off of like, how much does it cost to put this much plastic into this piece? That I think is the incorrect conclusion.
It's a logistics cost. It's a logistics and production cost, right?
It's fair, right? But where I think the real cost is with Lego is the molding and the specialization of the molding. And we already kind of talked about that too a little bit.
It's a return on the molding, right? Like it's your break-even point on a mold, because it's going to be way more efficient. It's an efficiency, right?
Right. And so the more specialized the mold, the more that piece is going to cost over just the basic cost of plastic that goes into it. So that's an important factor too, that is really not captured by price per weight or price per part. So just kind of one more layer to the puzzle. So anyways, we could probably muse on that forever.
Danny writes, Dear Grinch and West, thank you so much for your podcast. As a 22-year-old AFOL, I graduated from college and started my first job post-grad as a chemistry lab tech. I am able to listen to music, podcasts, audiobooks while performing routine tests in the lab, and AFOLs Welcome is my go-to. Although the Adventurers theme was released before my childhood, this theme still feels nostalgic and resembles the type of mocks I gravitate towards, especially with the Egyptian sets. Thus, I was stoked to hear about the Adventurers building contest with Wilderland builds. I love the simplicity, nostalgia, and careful designs incorporated into the Magic School Bus Lego idea submission by Jarrett of Wilderland Builds, and I wish him the best in the review process. With Jarrett's building process as an inspiration in my submission for the contest, I wanted to capture this theme by recreating an adventure I personally experienced during a January term in Egypt through Taylor University in 2023. During that month, my professor and Egyptologist, Dr. Kevin Johnson, took us to Dr. Henry Jones, took us to all the sites that he frequented while writing his dissertation, including the, Hatshepsut. Did I even say that right?
Hatshepsut? I think, yeah.
Yep.
I think so.
HATSHEPSUTS temple. And Danny has no longer listening to AFOLs Welcome. While there, as a part of our experience with museum tours, our group had the opportunity to run a 5K that finished at
said temple.
By the aforementioned temple. The H Temple. It was a beautiful morning with the warm Egyptian sun, blue sky, sandy landscape, and hot air balloons all around. I was mostly taking it all in on the run. But not only was I surrounded by beautiful history, it's also unexpectedly made history. As I crossed the finish line, a lady approached me shouting, "You're the first female to cross." Soon after all the fanfare began, I had the opportunity to step up to the podium with two lovely ladies who traveled from Palestine and Italy to race. It was a wonderful moment celebrating sportsmanship and female achievement amidst the background of Hatshepsut, gosh, temple. Thus, thus I give you Hatshepsut haphazard temple trek, where the ancient meets the modern, much like the retired adventures seem outright ought to be reimagined in 2026. And then they attach some photos. Thank you for your time and considerations. I look forward to listening to the next podcast. Adventure awaits. Keep building. So, Danny, we'll reach out to make sure it's okay if we share those photos on our Instagram so that we can have not only us enjoy them, but the rest. So,
Yes.
because it's a ongoing competition, I will save my commentary for when we announce the winner. However, I did want to say a very nice story. I really enjoyed reading about it, and I should have probably looked up the pronunciation prior to the episode. Full disclosure, I would have sneakily started and then made sure West was reading this one instead, but that did not come to fruition. So, but no, hey, congratulations on being the first female to finish that 5K in particular. I mean, that's just an awesome accomplishment, and we're also really sincerely glad that you're enjoying the show and a part of the Lego community. So.
Absolutely.
Great. I love the inspiration for the contest. So I mean, it's a really good story and a really cool thing to build something off of, right?
Yeah. Intersection of your own experience and the Lego adventures. So, well, our last comment today comes from Crowgirl9833, who writes, I think a large change in Lego is that we are trading overall size for detail at this point. Yeah, I would agree, and I think Ziegel would agree as well, which would account for the stable price per part averages. I think Star Wars and City are probably the best example because we have repeats to compare over the years. It seems like almost everything is built to a far higher standard of detail, which means smaller pieces, which leads to either smaller or much more dense builds. While price per part is stable, we are paying the same prices for less volume of plastic. It also it may just be me, but I expect to get better deals as I spend more money, similar to buying in bulk. It's egregious to me that a $1,000 set is anything over 9 cents part per price, at least. 100% agree with your frustrations about icons and ideas. I do think your explanation of the US situation was definitely putting it lightly. That's all I'm going to say there. Sorry this was so long, but yeah.
First of all, it's not long. All good.
No, but I mean, Crowgirl, I think you're absolutely hitting on the same observation made by, like I said, our previous Brick Mail writer, and also one that we've made as well, right? And as Lego is getting more detailed, the piece count continues, but the price kind of stays, stable, and we get ultimately, the sets look comparable, but the prices aren't always the same, right? In terms of like what we're getting, and like the Arc 170 was a great example this year because we've only had 3 of those over the course of Lego Star Wars. But yeah, I think that's an interesting idea too, of like if you're spending more on stuff, like could we not get like a nice little bulk discount there? I think that's a fair. I don't know. I don't think it's too unfair to ask for. Grinch.
Yeah, and I think I've teased the notion of like that's where Lego's getting a little bit more aggressive with pricing minifigures, right? Because I think obviously the set that's being referenced with the $1,000 price call out
Which
is
one
the
is
Death
that?
Star, right? And there are
Oh,
yeah, there's a Death Star that came out this year. That's funny. It wasn't on any of our nominations,
weird.
but wow, there was 40 minifigures, right? In that set, and also 1,000 pieces means a really big instruction book, and then the heaviest individual part of what comes in the box is the instructions, typically, almost in every case, right? Like unless there's maybe a battery or like a magnetic piece in there, like it's gonna be the instructions. So but yeah, I think we hit kind of, don't want to beat a dead horse here with the we went through the comments with Daniel's comment up front, and it it certainly feels like those bigger sets are no longer like that's how it used to feel, right? Like the bigger the set, the better the deal, right? Like back in 2018. But with stuff like the Black Pearl, right, there's certainly some kind of a different pricing strategy that's been going on with Lego.
Yeah, and I did just want to hit on this idea, though, Grinch, of the instruction books. Obviously, you already mentioned like it's heavy, but the printing costs for putting together an instruction book like that have got to be pretty high. I mean,
I think probably just the weight it adds to the shipping containers a
yeah,
little bit more high, but yeah, I mean, yes, there's.
you go to
I wouldn't be
Kinko's
surprised
and
if it was 20% of what you were paying for is the instruction booklet.
especially on a set too that's not going to be produced at such a high volume. And so again, you don't get the benefit of large volume production on making things cheaper. So kind of a lose-lose for everybody in that it was a special collector set and also the most expensive or biggest that we've ever gotten. So the price was never going to be good. I
Nope.
guess is the conclusion I'm drawing.
And that is a wrap of another episode of AFOLs Welcome. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and leave us a review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you are listening to this show. If you would like to write the podcast, please email us at afolswelcome@gmail.com or follow us on Instagram at AFOLsWelcome. Thank you for listening, and we will catch you on the next one.
See ya.